Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today with a new federal mandate that's sending some serious shockwaves through the public housing system. We're talking about something that could impact more than 2 million people across the country.
So let's start with what seems like a really simple question. Who actually lives in public housing? Seems basic, right? Well, it turns out that's the exact question the federal government is now demanding an answer to, and they're doing it on a massive scale.
Yep, the government is checking. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, just dropped this huge new order. They want to find out, once and for all, who is living in their properties. So let's get into it and break down what this new mandate is all about.
Okay, so here's the core of it. HUD has ordered a nationwide eligibility review. This means they're telling public housing agencies and property owners all over the country that they have to verify that every single one of their tenants is legally eligible to be there.
And you've got to understand, the scope of this is just massive. We're not talking about a few random spot checks. No, this is a huge, comprehensive order that applies to all federally assisted housing, and they're putting a special focus on checking things like immigration status.
Okay, so this begs the question, right? Why is this happening and why now? What's the government's official reason for such a big nationwide push? Well, the administration has been pretty direct about it.
HUD Secretary Scott Turner put it like this, quote, "We will leave no stone unturned. Ineligible non-citizens have no place to receive welfare benefits." He's really framing this whole thing as a way to clamp down on any potential abuse and make sure taxpayer money is going where it's supposed to. The stated goal is all about safeguarding those resources.
Now, this isn't just something the administration cooked up out of the blue. They're actually pointing to existing laws to back this whole thing up. Let's look at the legal foundation they're citing.
First up, they're pulling out a law that's been around for a while, the Housing and Community Development Act of 1980. So the basic idea here isn't new at all. There have been rules on the books for decades about who can and can't live in federally funded housing.
And on top of that, they're also citing a much more recent executive order. This one is super specific. It directly tells federal agencies to verify citizenship and immigration status before anyone gets into federally assisted housing.
So like I said, this didn't just happen overnight. This new directive is actually the direct result of a huge behind-the-scenes effort, a joint federal audit. This was a big data sharing project between HUD and the Department of Homeland Security. And you're probably wondering how that worked. Well, it's pretty straightforward. HUD handed over its tenant data from big programs like Section 8 and 9. Then, the Department of Homeland Security took that data and cross-referenced it against all their immigration records, basically looking for any mismatches.
And that's the big question, right? What did this audit actually find? Well, the results were pretty striking, and they are the direct reason we're seeing this new directive roll out now.
Get this, the audit flagged almost 200,000 tenants whose eligibility needs to be verified. I mean, think about that for a second. That's a massive number of cases for local housing agencies to suddenly have to investigate.
And then there's this, which is kind of wild. They found about 25,000 tenants listed in the housing records who were actually deceased. For whatever reason, they were just still on the books.
And finally, the audit specifically identified almost 6,000 non-citizen tenants who, according to that data cross-check, were considered ineligible for the housing benefits they were getting. So now that HUD has all this audit data, the clock is officially ticking for housing agencies all over the country. And the really crucial part is what happens next. What exactly are they supposed to do, and how fast do they have to do it?
And the answer is really, really fast. The deadline they've been given is incredibly tight. We're talking just 30 days. 30 days for these agencies to investigate all those flagged cases and take what the government is calling corrective action.
And you better believe the stakes are high for these agencies. This isn't just a friendly suggestion, it's a mandate. If they don't comply, they could be facing some pretty serious sanctions from HUD. And on top of that, HUD has said it will try to get back any money it thinks was paid out for tenants who are eligible.
So what are the housing authorities saying about all this? Well, for their part, a big organization that represents them has basically said, hey, we just follow the federal regulations and guidance. They're kind of putting the ball right back in HUD's court.
And this is what it all comes down to. This is why it matters so much. We're talking about a new directive that could potentially affect the lives of more than 2.2 million people. That's how many residents are currently living in public housing across the country.
So what's next for these 2.2 million residents? This whole thing really forces some big questions about enforcement, about the risk of displacement, and honestly, about the future of public housing itself.
You've got these local agencies scrambling to meet this 30-day deadline, and the big question hanging over all of it is, what's the end result going to be? Will this really just safeguard taxpayer money, or could it end up creating a whole new housing crisis for thousands of families? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds.